All right, everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of the Dexbuild podcast. I'm Matt. This is Andy. Where are you now? Over here? I'm used to pointing up. Normally, you're above me.
So to your
Yeah.
right?
But yeah, I got to point to my right and then pull my finger
Look
in
at that
and then
thumb,
turn
man.
that.
You better just.
It looks real skinny on here.
Gosh.
I promise I have a whole thumb. Look.
You got even smaller.
There it is. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about today. I think we'll just have to be quicker with a lot of it.
Yep.
But I think let's talk a little bit about the first full big topic. It's old news now because we only do our podcast once a month, but Nintendo Switch 2 and the Nintendo Direct that accompanied its announcement, and then the pre-order process. I just kind of want to talk about all of it. Let's go chronologically though. So Nintendo Switch 2 was, I mean, it's been announced, but like the reveal came at the beginning of April. You watched the Direct, right? The full thing?
I don't know, actually.
I think you did when you got excited about it.
I think I listened to the podcast while I was taking a shower.
Like you just heard the reveal?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I think we can talk about highlights if you remember any of them. I can quickly tell you some of mine, and then you can probably piggyback those, and if you remember seeing something else. But let's go in order. We're going to save a big one for the end. We'll talk about it, but then we'll loop back. Number one for me that I'm really excited about, I never had a Nintendo Wii at all. So I was excited. The first big announcement that caught my attention, besides Mario Kart World, I feel like that's like an obvious for everybody. Everybody's going to play that game. You're not a Mario Kart guy? That's crazy.
No. I am very much so back in the day as much as anybody else. But I feel firmly that I don't have the setup being others in the house interested to grind that gear at this stage of my life. You have a gamer in the house, so
what about the fact they have the new like online thing, like as the culture of it? Like you're not gonna play with me and Brandon?
Nah.
Oh, come on. Okay, so I want to talk about it first then real quick.
Yep.
The big announcement of the reveal, name is dope. Super Mario Kart World, awesome name. Especially because it ties into the new mechanic of the game, which is that it has like a Forza Horizon type setup, which means you can still do all your race, all your Grand Prix, everything about Mario Kart that we know and love is there, which is good. Because don't mess with the formula that works. But I love the idea that there's now like open areas you can just drive around in while you're not racing and do stuff, collect stuff, whatever. Forza Horizon started doing that. Those are the first like Forza games I really liked. Like I was a big fan of the idea of like, okay, go find these people, enter these random races, whatever. Like, because for me, that was actually always my big complaint about Mario Kart is like, I never really felt like there was like a true campaign. Like you could go through and just do all the Grand Prix and beat them and try to up the difficulty. But the idea of maybe like a campaign where you actually can go do stuff and beat the game and roll credits on Mario Kart besides just like knocking out a bunch of races. I like that.
That's very old school though, because that's back like, I mean, early Nintendo and early PlayStation where all you're doing is you keep beating the game with different people so that you unlock other maps and other characters. Stuff, like that's like an arcade fighter. Like you just beat it with every fighter, so you get all of the fighters. In this case, you get all of the racers.
Like, that's interesting because they showed the map, and it's like every region obviously will kind of have like levels to it. I am interested if like regions are sort of locked until you do things like in your personal game, or if that doesn't work for the online stuff. But we'll see. I mean, I'll definitely be playing it. I will say like I've never been like an above average Mario Karter. Very much like social Mario Kart, but I like it as much as the next person.
Maybe that's part of my problem because I was very much not that. I was, if I was playing the game, I was gonna beat whoever I was racing against, just because like I did the grinding to the point where like Rainbow Road, which is obviously notoriously difficult, that was like, whatever, I got this. It's you're not gonna beat me on any track, and I think that's the kind of grinding that I have left behind on a game like that. To your point, though,
you've always been like that. That falls into your thing of like you need to get 3 stars. It's a similar thing.
Yeah. I don't know that this is the kind of game to me that I need to be open world, given that I already only care so much about open world. Like it's doing it as a race style is the wrong direction for me more so. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard somewhere that the races in this game are not going to be lap based. It's just a start and a finish linearly.
I would imagine that's possible for certain things. I don't know for sure, but I bet some are laps, some are not. You know,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, what's interesting is like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch became almost like a catch-all, right? Like similar to what they did with the most recent Smash, where it felt like, okay, this is like not the last Mario Kart, but they're like bringing back all these tracks. They added all those like expansion packs and all that, and all of a sudden, like there's like 100 tracks in that game. I don't know how much it actually was, but it was a lot. I could see the world becoming something similar, where like over time they add old stuff, whatever. Because like, why? I mean, I guess you could go back and play 8 on the Switch, but or on the Switch too. But I could also see a world where they keep adding. I also bet the game has laps, and I bet there are certain races that have to do with the world you're in, and they're more linear. But we'll find out when it comes out. They had a direct specifically about it. I didn't watch because at some point, like for me, it's kind of similar right now. They're like slow dripping. We'll talk about this at the end, but like information about Night Rain. But once I'm like, I'm gonna play it, then I kind of black myself out to it a little bit because I like,
Yeah.
I don't want all the stuff you find to be spoiled. You know, once I'm already sold. If I don't know about it, then I'm like, all right, let me watch it, check it out. Anyway, so that's Mario Kart World.
Hang on, before you move on, I'm not ignoring you right now. I'm, for the life of me, trying to figure out who my character is. Who's your person?
Link.
Who do you always go to? Link?
Yeah.
Since when is
always.
Link a character?
All of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You could even get like
That
his glider and stuff from Breath of the Wild, and all that stuff was.
I think that's my problem. Is I googled Switch characters. I need Wii characters. I didn't play whatever this deluxe thing that you're talking about is.
the highest selling game on Switch 2.
Yeah.
Or on
All
Switch
right.
1, I mean.
Keep going. If I can figure out who I raced with, I'll just interject with that, but I'm struggling.
Okay. The next one I was excited about, this is why I mentioned I didn't have a Wii. They also did the announcement that the GameCube, which I also didn't have, emulator is coming to Switch 2. Not emulator, but whatever you call that on the online package.
Yeah.
I never played Wind Waker, and I've heard like it's like a lot of people's favorite Zelda. So I'm pretty excited to check that out. I think the art style is super cool. That's the one that was like sort of really cartoony, cell shaded. He's on a boat for a lot of it. Like you boat
Yeah.
around and do stuff. So that's going to be on there. I've never played it, so I'm excited to be able to play that on Switch. That's why I've never played it. There's no way to do it unless you emulated it or bought it on a, or went back and busted out like a Wii or GameCube or whatever.
Did
'Cause
you
I think
pre-order the controller? The
no,
GameCube
not for
controller to do it
that
properly?
controller's so wacky. I know people love it, but I'm not doing that. The
I'd do it.
Nintendo Pro controller is too good to use anything else.
Yeah,
I
that's
bought
fair.
I bought the Super Nintendo ones because that's like my most nostalgic controller, probably besides N64.
That is not a very ergonomic controller.
SNES.
Yeah.
That one? Yeah, no, but it's so classic. And I feel like if I play like Super Mario like World or something, then I probably would use that. But otherwise, Pro controller all day. So I'm excited about that. Also, some of the other stuff that I'm sure will come to the GameCube thing, I'll be excited about just because I never really got the chance.
Real
They
quick.
revealed more of Metroid Prime 4. I'm excited about that. We'll get there. Have you ever played a Metroid Prime game?
No. There at the tail end of my Switch, whenever I was still playing things, I was about to get the one. I guess it would have been like 2 years ago, maybe just like Metroid Prime. I don't know.
Yeah.
I played the demo for a little bit, but never got around to playing the game itself. The
It's cool,
demo
'cause
was
obviously
hard.
It's not an easy game. I mean, honestly, part of it I think it's like it's a little more archaic, but the other thing that's interesting about it is how it is first person, but still has like the Metroid mechanics, like, oh, I can't get there yet, I'll come back kind of stuff. That's still in it. But I did find it difficult. I did beat that one. That's the only one I've played though. But I've heard that's by far the best. They kind of fall off, and I will play this just because. But what is interesting about that one that I'm curious about your take on is apparently that's like the one they've been demoing, the ability to take that new Joy-Con and turn it on its side, and you can play like mouse style to shoot and stuff. Now, here's my thing. If my Switch was at my desk, amazing. But my question for you is like, what's the practicality of this mouse control when you're on a couch? Like, what are you supposed to do? Put it on your lap? Like, where do you mouse it? Are you gonna hunch over your coffee table? Like, what are you supposed to do? Practically speaking.
Yeah, I don't know. And even for the rest of it, like, do people who play with those, do they just expect that they are that good at your hands in two different places, controlling two different things?
I hate that feeling too. Yeah, even if you
Like,
just play Zelda, like or
how
whatever,
did this, except I'm doing this?
yeah, like does
There's
the
no
Switch
way.
come with the lock thing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do you remember, does the
Like that
Switch come
square
with the
one?
thing that makes it a controller?
Yeah,
Yeah, because I remember I tried to play Zelda with it apart, and it does not feel right. And even
yeah.
when you put it together, it feels a little awkward.
On that
But
square one, yeah, then there's a
yeah,
reason no other controller is a square.
yeah. So I'm interested to see how they handle all that. But um, I'll probably play with it for the novelty. I'm sure they'll do some weird shit with like the new Mario parties in the future and stuff that will utilize it. But the thing that's wild is I was listening to the besties talk about it because they got to go do the hands-on. And they said when you play Prime, they still expect you while it's on the side to use the face buttons to do stuff. So like if a jump or
Oh,
something is on A, it'd be like using, on your mouse, where's my camera? Like, your side rail buttons, I guess. But I can't imagine that feels natural. But we'll see.
yeah. I
So
mean, it
that's
must be like you're using like one of those vertical ergonomic mouses. Nice.
Mhm. I'm sure
Yeah.
they thought about it, but also maybe they didn't. I do think there's still some cool design things about the Switch. I like that now when you turn the Joy-Con on its side, like the shoulder buttons are more pronounced. They actually like come out because of the way the magnets work. Like they indent in the side, so there's room for stuff to come out of the top. I like that the back trigger like comes out a little bit more now and stuff like that. But it's not super ergonomic. Like the Joy-Con being stacked above the buttons is always a little weird and stuff like that. Like especially when you come from the Steam Deck, which is like hardier.
Mm-hmm.
I even bought, can't remember who makes it, but I bought those like aftermarket Joy-Con that you can slide onto the new Switch or the old Switch, and it gives you like hardy controllers on the side. Problem is it doesn't have any vibrations, but it's worth the trade-off for
Oh,
having like
yeah.
a grippable
It's
controller.
a Hori or Ori, right? The
I
HORI.
think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I've never found the Switch to feel good playing handheld like that until I got that
No.
thing. And even still, it's slightly off, but
Yeah.
I'm not
This
really
one
a
is
handheld
apparently a
guy.
lot bigger, which I think will help. It
Yeah.
won't be as like
But
compact.
I think the issue though is it's the exact same thing that I was referring to with your Super Nintendo or your NES or whatever, where when you just have like a flat rectangle like that, you're doing
Mhm.
a lot of like torquing on the center, like pressing one button,
Yep.
like everything is directly fighting against itself, I guess. And
Mhm.
so long as the Switch remains like a flat thing and doesn't have that built-in something for you to hold on to, every button press is an equal but opposite force on the other side of the console.
Yep. Yep. I agree with that. Okay. I think we'll talk probably more about Switch 2 once it's out. The actual like hardware.
What's your
But
launch day titles? Not specifically Switch 2, but like what's Matt playing day 1 on the Switch 2?
I don't think a ton is out on day one. Obviously Mario Kart.
Mhm.
There is a game series I've heard a lot of people talk about that I've been interested in, and it's already, I think, out, or if not, it comes out for everything else before, but it will be on Switch on launch day, which is a game called Rune Factory, which is like a sort of like a Final Fantasy-esque game that mixes in like a little bit of like farming sim stuff like a Stardew Valley. I don't love farming sim games. I don't love sandbox games in general. I need like objectives. But my understanding is like a lot of what you do in that enables you to upgrade to then go do actual like RPG type missions, which gives me that goal stuff. So I think that will be my time to check it out, just because I want some stuff on the Switch besides Mario Kart. So I could see like the combination of a game I've never really checked out being new on the Switch, which finally has like, allegedly 120 FPS. That's another thing we'll have to talk about. I have trouble believing that. But
Only dock
we'll
though,
see.
right?
I don't remember. I thought the
I think
handheld, but
it's
it
only
drops down
dock.
to like a 1080 max. But Doc, they're claiming like, I
Well,
thought I saw
well,
them claim 4K
you
120,
said
and I'm like, dude, the PS Pro doesn't do that.
you said 1080 max.
I
I mean, yeah,
handheld.
yes. Resolutions, yes. Handheld
Yes.
1080, docked 4K. But I don't
Yep.
think I heard that 120 is also also handheld.
Let's see. Let's find out. 120 FPS Switch.
While you're searching that, I think
Switch supports
there's
frame rates up to 120 compatible for compatible games, both in handheld and docked modes.
Wow, okay.
It offers smoother gameplay and enhanced visual clarity with HDR and VRR support. While docked, the Switch 2 can output 4K resolution at 60 or 1080 or slash 1440 at 120.
I
And so I'm assuming,
wonder.
I think the machine itself is only going to be 1080, so that it won't ever go above that in handheld.
Yes.
And it's not an OLED.
Yes.
So that's a step back from the OLED Switch, obviously, which obviously they'll do an update, in 2 years to get more money from me.
I don't know if this is the kind of thing I could tell you if I was close enough to the window of building a PC, but I don't know if you could even recognize 120 versus 60 on a 7-inch screen or whatever.
Probably not. How do I get back to my thing?
But that's fine. I think they'll probably do like phones do, where it's like variable, and it'll kill areas or like die down, whatever. I think there's a very reasonable chance that I get the thing and it just sits in the box for a little bit. Like,
I think I could see that. Well,
like Tears of the Kingdom is the only thing that comes to mind.
Which I have heard, by the way. Side note.
Looks good, right?
They had that at the hands in, and people were like, it's not a nothing. It's like a whole new game.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it would be a new game because I've never played it.
And that's why you waited, in your defense. Like, you're getting the best version of it.
Yeah. I've just got, and we'll get to this, I've got like 4 games going right now, and I can't handle a Zelda on top of that.
Which is not like a short game. It's like to play that game proper, it's going to be like a 90, 100 hour kind
of thing. Like I need to not forget in between plays how to play the game. I need to be locked in. I beat Breath of the Wild over a calendar year. It was like literally start to finish a year, and that's no way to play a game like that.
This is the first year I felt excited when I heard Grand Theft Auto got delayed, because I'm just like, thank God. Like, we need a breather. And we'll talk about it more. Like, you have like heavy hitting games waiting for you still for this year. But anyway, all right, let's fast forward. I'm skipping a big announcement here to go straight to the end, and then we'll loop back. But at the end, they revealed probably what will become my second big game. I'm absolutely playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. Pumped for that. I'm a big Donkey Kong guy. It getting kind of its like Odyssey moment, I'm pretty excited about. So that'll be one for me.
I've never played, we've talked about this in Demon Souls. I've never played a proper Donkey Kong game. So part of me is interested to give it a whirl and just see what it's about. It'll be one of those games that I'm not going to tell you it's a great game and I love it, but it's one that I would kind of love the innocence of it, which in itself is the Nintendo of it. So I might try it out for that. Yeah,
I agree with that. So I'm excited about that. We don't need to go into a bunch, but it looks like you can like destroy everything, break stuff. It looks open zone-ish, like a 3D Mario kind of game. I never actually played Donkey Kong Country N64. I think that was the name of it, but like the 3D Donkey Kong game. I know a lot of people liked it. I also remember it required you having like expansion like CPU that thing or whatever it was you like dropped in your yeah. So it could actually run it, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll be one that comes to the N64 library as well, and I would probably play it like that, or maybe they'll remaster it or something. Which honestly, that would have been smart to do like 6 months ago to get people kind of excited for this. What's cool about it, and kind of sad as a person who loves Donkey Kong, is we went through an entire Switch like console cycle without a new Donkey Kong. They remastered like Tropical Freeze or whatever, I think, and maybe HD Donkey Kong, something HD, I don't remember what it was, but they didn't make a single new Donkey Kong for all of the OG Switch.
There's got to be a reason for that. There just must not be that many people.
Well, I think maybe some of it was tied up in the fact Rare went through some weird stuff. The people who did like Banjo-Kazooie and all that also made that game, and I know that like dissolved and got bought, and I'm sure that was part of it. And we'll get into all kinds of further conversation here in just a second about what happens with exclusives.
You got birds flying into your hair.
It sounds like Gaius was doing something he wasn't supposed to. Are you talking about in my screen?
Yeah. They're doing
flybys. Clair Obscur background. But anyway, the The thing about that one though that I think will be exciting is just having like him back as like a big mascot for Nintendo. Like he's one of their most recognizable characters. I imagine the movie helped because everybody loved his character in that. They redid the model for Donkey Kong. He looks great, so I'm excited for that. Now let's rewind to the middle of the show, where I think like most people were watching the Nintendo Switch Direct and being like, "What is happening right now? Like, why does it look like we have like, is this Resident Evil? No, it looks old timey." And then you see this guy's hand, and you're like, "Is this?" It's obviously not. It's Nintendo. Is this Bloodborne? And then like all of the internet, I watch like every reaction video. Everybody like, they're the only company I feel like that when the title goes black and you just get like FromSoft, you get people who are like,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, why is this in the Nintendo Switch Direct? And we get what looks very much like a Bloodborne-esque thing with a little bit of Liza P like steampunky stuff going on. And lo and behold, FromSoft is making legally distinct Bloodborne 2, it looks like, at least when we first saw it on Switch. And then all capped off at the end with like a finalized, only available on Nintendo Switch 2. Now that could be like for now, it could be a timed exclusive, I don't know the deal. But typically when FromSoft does a console exclusive, it stays there, right? Like the two examples in the past are Demon Souls and Bloodborne, which like talk about a rare, a Donkey Kong situation, a reason for something like, I would love like 10 years, 15, 20 years from now to know the story about why we never got more Bloodborne. Like there is a reason. That is a license to print money for Sony.
10,
FromSoft has said
15
they want
years
to
from
make it.
now, I'll still be expecting
Waiting.
it. Yeah.
I know. Just a remaster, but like at the very least. But anyway, and it feels very much like FromSoft went and was like, well, we had ideas, we're putting them in this, and we're giving them to Nintendo because we've been sitting on this stuff for so long. Then a little bit of the hype, I think, was diffused for you and I, at least, in terms of like, oh, it's this weird PvPvE. What does that mean? I think it's especially weird coming on the heels of Night Rain coming up, like back-to-back multiplayer games from a company not known for that. I mean, obviously they had components, but exclusively multiplayer. The difference, though, between this and Night Rain is like Night Rain very much feels like Miyazaki let like one of his underlings go try some new stuff and have fun with the IP. They're bringing back fan favorites. I think everyone understands it's not like a mainline game. It's like something we're getting between years of big games, right? Because as much as Shadow of the Erd Tree was a DLC last year, like it was a proper game. It's longer than most of the Dark Souls games. Do you hear this upstairs? Guys is getting it. Anyway, so I think the problem is like not understanding what it is. But I think the fact Miyazaki is directing it definitely gives me like that extra bit of like, all right, let's like obviously give it a chance. It's already FromSoft anyway. He also said this doesn't mean we're changing direction. Like we're not done with single player games. This is just what we were already cooking.
What are they giving? So this is I'm detracting. As very much the core FromSoft player, I feel like we are being skipped twice in a row. And so that like must surely mean that something big is happening like right now. And like they're going to come back to us. Because anybody who is a FromSoft person, you're not asking for these last two releases.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, everyone's going to play. Every FromSoft fan is going to play every game FromSoft does, and they're going to love it probably. But as someone who doesn't like this kind of game, but wants, especially a Bloodborne 2, to get Night Rain and then to get this, like, yeah, I'm going to play it, but I'm not going to like it.
I mean, like, here's the thing I think. Night Rain, I definitely have that exact lens on. Like, it kind of works out nicely for you and me because we already have, like, a weekly game night with Brandon that's just for fun.
Right, at least do it together.
These kind of games. Like, and we're 3 people. It's, like, designed for us. Like, here's, like, a thoughtless game you can go play that, like, builds off stuff you all love where you can't really play these games together. That works out fine. I'm just Duskbloods for me is like more of a wait and see, like this whole understanding of like what do you have to do to get to the Night Crystal and 8 players or whatever, but they all have different goals and some of their goals might actually be to cooperate, some might be to kill each other. Like everybody's got different tasks and stuff. What's the replayability on that? Like, is it a story? Is it a roguelite like Night Rain? Like we have a lot to learn, right? Like part of me hopes for a world where it's, you know, closer to like a Destiny or something. I don't think it will be. That's an MMO, but like, in terms of like, oh, you can go do some stuff cooperatively, you can do some stuff competitively, like decide, lean into what you like. Because I would definitely play a character that meant I had to go work with someone to do something more than trying to go kill other players. Because what I like about Night Rain is that at least it's co-op multiplayer. That's more my jam than
Yeah. Oh yeah, don't make me
going
talk
and
to strangers.
not only talk to strangers, but like don't make me go try to kill another player. Like that's not my vibe in Dark Souls. I don't ever invade. I don't have invasions on. I just don't care about the like fighting other people stuff. Some people do, and that's great. The only thing I will say is like I think everyone could agree there's nothing wrong with them going and trying to mix up their format, right? Like they were due to just make something else. I think as long as it's interspersed with like the classic kind of vibe, where it actually scares me. To your point is like, so Night Rain, you knew this isn't clogging up the pipes at all. Like somebody else is making it, they can still be working on their other stuff. The fact that the next mainline entry was this is interesting. And so what I'm more upset about is the potential that like a multiplayer game potentially is slowing them down from the next thing. Elden Ring to Dark Souls 4, Bloodborne 2, or new IP, like a new Sekiro type game. Like I would love anything like that more than this. And I don't mind that we're getting this, but I wish they could almost say like in Miyazaki's interview when he said we're not done with single player games. I hope that means like next year we immediately get an announcement that like in 2027 is the next one. We're not having to wait 2, 3, 4 more years for a new big one. You know, that would be the sad part.
Yeah.
Now, what they definitely could do at the same time is give Bloodborne to Bluepoint, let them remake it like they did Demon Souls. That's the dream. That's at least something. But we'll see.
Yeah. What's
So
the date
that's a
on
wait
that?
and see game.
You know?
On Duskbloods?
Yeah.
Just says 2026.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I won't.
Which now means you've
one.
got it competing with Grand Theft Auto for Game of the Year already.
Yeah.
Like as the heavy hitters. I'm not saying it will, but
yeah.
You know. But again, Miyazaki, who said in his interview, like, I don't like multiplayer games. I wanted to try to make a multiplayer game I would like, you know, and again, Miyazaki has never missed. So he gets the benefit of the doubt from me until we see it.
Sure.
That's, I think, the highlights of the Switch for me. I think, again, we'll talk more form factor, what we think about the machine itself when we see it. I don't think there's much reason to speculate. Everybody knows what's out there. I guess the last bit would be we both got lucky. We got through the pre-order hell. I don't think we need to go on that. That's been discussed by everyone, but
yeah,
it was just as sloppy as everyone guessed, but we kind of just lucked into our spots. You got Best Buy, I think, and I got Target, so we'll see.
No, I got Walmart. I was doing
Walmart.
it while I was playing Ender Magnolia. Ended up being the longest episode ever, like 2.5 hours. I think we cut it down to 45 minutes or so. But yeah, I started the episode talking about how I didn't really want one, which I actually think this is why I watched the direct after the fact. I think I was still at that point kind of just, I'm going to wait until Christmas time. I'll get it when I get it, no real rush. But right there before is when all the tariff talk started happening, and like it's still going to be normal price. So I think I started that stream talking about like asking the hypothetical watchers, what are y'all going to do? Are you going to do this bundle? Are you going to do just the single? And at the beginning of that playthrough, I think I was still of the mindset, I don't know, but if I do, I'm only going to try Target. And if I don't get Target, then it just wasn't meant to be. I don't care.
Yeah.
And like an hour and 45 later, I was sitting there dying on that boss. And I was like, all right, we got 16 minutes. If we beat this boss, we're going to get that Switch. Like I'd already hyped myself up by way of doing nothing but talking to the screen where like, I need a reward. This is going to be it. Mm-hmm. And then I think FOMO just kind of kicked in. It didn't work out for Target, but I finished that boss fight. I finished that episode and I was just like, I don't know. Like I needed something to happen. I needed something to be excited about aside from having beaten that boss. I needed some kind of a reward for it. And it just came in the form of the Switch because you had told me that Walmart was still working. And this was late.
It was like an hour in.
Yeah. So I just kind of like walked right into Walmart.com, ordered it, no problem.
Yeah. I had a buddy at work who fought Target and then just like quit. And I was like, I'm not built that way. Like once I've decided I'm gonna try to get a Switch, I'm gonna try to get a Switch. You know, like so I had like the 3 links. I was doing it all. So the lowest reward of all. I want to talk about the experiences on all of them because I was just testing them out mostly for you. But like I said, this buddy was also interested and he just quit at like 12:05 for some reason. So I was just wanted to see them all. And I thought worst case, like if I got in one, I'd buy the second because I would know someone who wanted one and who wasn't able to get one. Which is what happened with the PlayStation. By way of something similar, I signed up for Nintendo or excuse me, PlayStation's like official login and then got it through a third party, got it through the retailers, and then still got the invite. That could happen. So Nintendo doesn't even. That was the other part of the mess. They don't even send out their invites for theirs until May 8th, which is Thursday.
That's crazy. And the fact that they're the ones who might not be able to fulfill. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and just like, why have everybody fight the retailers and give them their money directly when you could go get these people ahead of time and then let people understand and go flood the retailers later? It would have taken pressure off some of the retailers also.
And it feels so much more official. Like if I bought my PlayStation from PlayStation, I didn't. But if I bought the PlayStation from PlayStation, I bought the Switch from Nintendo, it feels like, all right, this is going to go through more of like a white glove service to get to me. Whereas if I go to a Target or a Walmart, somebody at some point is throwing that thing off of a truck because they don't care. It's just what it feels like.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and it's also their system was really smart. What I did like about what Nintendo's doing is the whole system of like, you can only order it if you have had an account, if you've played over 50 hours of games, like because let's be real, like scalpers are the problem, right? Like they've got bots in there, they're buying up a bunch of stock, selling it for $800 at best on like eBay or whatever. And the weirdest part about it is the Nintendo's date never changed, so their first date would have been over a month later. You know what I'm saying? Like people would have bought the Switch on April 9th and then come May 8th, a month later, you're opening up. I don't. How many people are just going to decline their invites at this point? I don't really know. But
sorry, you triggered a little laughing spell there. I haven't told you this yet, but we've tossed around the idea of doing golf stuff also. And I thought the other day, you said bot. I thought the other day, I have this idea where, because I know you're doing a lot of things and there might be days where I want to do a golf thing and you're not around to do a golf thing. So I thought I'm going to create AI Matt basically. And I'm going to describe you and then let it be you. And I've already decided that its name is going to be Mitt. so whenever you said a bot, just Mitt came right back to my mind.
Dude, I've tried this is a whole other side thing, but I've tried training like Chat GPT's like live chat just for fun. Like when you can talk to it and be like, don't talk that way. Like talk like this. Don't be so formal, like whatever, and see how like much you can hone it.
Yeah.
That's what you should just like let the live chat be there. It'll always be like slightly delayed, but it'll just be like I remember telling it, for example, I was like casual up and I was like, by the way, it's like okay to curse. Like you don't have to like guard yourself. Like, I think it'll be more like casual. And its reply is, hell yeah, let's let loose or something like that. I literally was like, no. I was like, don't do that. Yeah. I was like, first of all, don't ever say the expression hell yeah, please. Anyway, yeah, good luck with Mitt. Okay, that's Nintendo. I imagine our like end of June podcast.
Right, yeah. We're a month out. Yeah.
Yeah, May will probably not even be discussion. Maybe at the end we get a little hyped about it, but all right, the next one. I know you have like very little
5 days.
You've bitten off of this, but we played Blueprints. I have rolled credits. You've played 5 days in, which is not a lot.
Not a lot.
I mean, I don't even know. Do you even feel like you have the rhythm of what the gameplay loop is yet?
Yes. Yesterday I did find a YouTube video. I had played it, and I think I told you I came across the note that says to suggest that you get a notebook, and I thought that was an item that I could get in the game. And so like I even went to the trader thinking like, all right, maybe I can buy a notebook. And then I remember reading or seeing podcasts and people talking about they're actually opening up computers or notebooks or whatever. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. So I think 3 days in, after the first night, the second day is whenever I looked for a video just to kind of help understand, like, what is it that I should be doing? I don't want anything spoiled. This is not my kind of game.
In a lot of ways, like puzzles and roguelites.
Yeah, so it explained some basic things. Like my main takeaway was early days, be drawing all the different rooms you can just for the exposure of seeing the different rooms. So I was like, all right,
Yes,
got it. That makes sense.
that's a big tip. Yep.
It alluded to certain things that were permanent, which is like,
Hmm.
love it because that's exactly what I hate about these games.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it kind of said like if you stay on the outsides, well, I don't even know. There was a benefit to staying on the outsides. I've forgotten what those were. Um, but so through day 5, I've got a few permanent opens, and my allowance is now
Yeah.
doubled. Which I didn't even know that I had an allowance until I read the description on it being doubled.
Yeah.
But I get stuck a lot, like 3 rows deep of what I imagine is more like 15. But
Yeah. It's, what is it, like 9 by 5? I think
maybe.
something like that.
So
Yeah.
then maybe like a third of the way through where I'm like, all right, I'm getting all this stuff. I've got some cash, I've got some keys, I've got some gems, and then I end up right there and it's like, nope, I got nowhere to go. I've got 58 steps and no more doors to go through. So I'm still fighting that battle right now.
Yeah, I think so. I guess we should describe for people to know. Blueprints is a puzzle roguelite game that is a pretty strong combination of both. And the roguelite elements are exactly what you'd expect. So the reason you say roguelite versus roguelike, roguelite means that there are permanent progression elements. This game has an ending, stuff like that. The other aspect of it, though, that's the puzzle thing, is there are puzzles that are in individual rooms. There's like some of the most common examples are the billiard room has like a dartboard that has like some math stuff, and you can find notes that explain how that works. And then there's like a gem room that essentially has like a deduction logic puzzle. 3 boxes. One has to, like, at least one has to be true, at least one has to be false, and only one box contains gems. Those are the rules. And basically, you have to like read the boxes, figure out, make sure you have at least a lie and a truth, and by deduction, can pretty much always figure out where the gems are. The more you solve the puzzles in each of those rooms, for example, the difficulty of them will ramp up in future runs just by a tick.
Mm.
But like the math puzzle starts adding like elements and like negatives and multiplication and whatever, like just starts changing the difficulty of what you need to do there. But then the bigger part of blueprints is like the larger puzzle, and there's two things to that. There's like plot. You can learn the story of the game. That's mostly independent of the larger puzzles. So like some rooms might have post-its that explain sort of like a color coding that's happening in the house, and one might explain, hey, there's like a power system in here, and you think about, hey, there's security rooms can do these things, and all of a sudden you start connecting like, oh, if I get a breaker room and I find a security room, I can turn my doors to be like high security doors, so I see more of them, and I can cut the power at the breaker, so I have more of those doors, but they all open for free because there's no power. You start like learning, like, oh, I can do this and this, and then you start thinking about what cards you want to draw. So that's where like the combination of puzzle and roguelike start coming together. Like similar to an Isaac or any other room, you start looking for like synergies of things you have, whether capitalize on your money, your steps, your gems, your keys, and I think that's the key to the game is like just understanding like what you said is exactly right, especially early on. Like you're not necessarily trying to get up to that antechamber because like you probably don't have all the information you need once you get there anyway. Like your goal is just to learn kind of at the beginning and then start putting pieces together to let you get further to learn more. And um so what's cool about that is it doesn't make you feel like a run is a failed run necessarily if you're coming away with something. To your point, maybe it's permanent. You doubled your allowance, or you got an item that lets you have more steps overall, or you unlock things outside the house that give you the
Hmm.
opportunity to do things inside the house. And I will tell you, without like any like specifics, there are some things, and I don't even know if it's a game you'll go back to or not, but there are some things that like once you solve or do, like they're just done. Like you don't have to go do that every time.
I
Like,
I think I've got one of those, which I had a proud moment yesterday because I had made it to the garage,
mhm.
and like several runs before this, I had picked up car keys. Of course, I didn't have car keys
Yep.
here. I don't even know if they would work, but I made it to the garage, didn't have anything. Garage door wasn't working. I set the precedent, it wasn't working. So I came back around and I had the chance to draw whatever it is with the power stuff. Um, Yeah, I don't know what it's called. But I remembered
Break
what
room.
the break room. Yeah, I remembered what those options were because I had been in there for no reason a run or two prior, and I remembered that the garage was one of them. So I went
Yep.
back, powered it on, came back, the garage door worked again, and
Yep.
then I had two
This is not a
permanent.
spoiler, by the way. It's early, so you can say what you find. Yeah.
I had two permanent openings.
Yep.
So I don't know that I necessarily found the thing, but I had two permanent openings that came from that, which was like
Yeah, like you
a
open the
proud
gate
moment.
outside,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, which is nice because that thing gives you access to that like door way off to the side over there.
Which
That
right. So I assume then, like, say I do one of those runs where it's like, great, I'm stuck. I'm 2 rows in. This was a waste. I've got 58 steps, no doors. I can always now back to the house and maybe get another room's worth of doors just by getting back into the house.
no, so that's interesting. This is not really a spoiler to say, but like once you've opened the garage, it you don't really need to go out that way again. Like the
So
board
those
that let
car
you
keys,
cross
I'm
back
not,
is gone.
I'm not trying to like hop in the
Car
car
keys
and
are
go
good.
somewhere.
No, you won't drive somewhere. You can get into the car though.
Okay. Listen to the
So
radio.
that does matter. But I think the bigger thing there is that you unlocked access to like that. It's like a shed or something, or like
Mm-hmm.
built into a hillside or whatever it is, and that essentially is like an additional room you can get at the beginning of every run that gives you like a buff or some kind of items or something that you can use on run. So that is a permanent upgrade. That room is still randomized. Like I want to say you get to choose from 3 of like 5 plus early on rooms. That could be. I don't know if that changes later in the game. How many options are there? But that is definitely hugely beneficial because you might get the tool shed and you get to have 2 items. So you might start a run with like a metal detector and a hammer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the garage exit doesn't necessarily matter. Like once you dead end yourself, you've dead ended yourself, and obviously that's the biggest thing to avoid in the game. Like it's a risk reward, right? Like you want the closet or you want the wardrobe because they have items, but
Yeah.
they also are guaranteed dead end for you. So I would always like go straight out to the sides and then drop those there while I still had like other upward exits, from the main entrance and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you do get a room that's important that is like permanently will go where you place it down and you'll come across that one. And there's just stuff like that. So I think probably what's coolest about blueprints though is I ran credits maybe at day like 25 or something like that, day 25 or day 30, somewhere in that time span. And I felt the satisfaction from like having done it for sure. Like I felt like I beat blueprints in general. But what's cool about that is that's probably like if you love it at that point, which again, this might not be you, but for the person who does, it's cool to know, okay, well, that was 20 hours of content, but there's 80 hours left if you're interested in just like getting to the bottom of everything, right? And like I've seen people like I've logged into YouTube's now because I don't care about being spoiled. I don't know if I'll go back to it. There's just too much going on. I see being game I go back to like in a long time just because you could pick it back up and not worry about beating it and just go deeper into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people, I don't even want to describe it here to avoid spoilers for people who do care, but where you're just like, I don't even understand what I'm looking at. Like the game just looks so different because there's so much to unlock and learn in it. And to know that like, I think like one guy made that game and that's wild.
Yeah. This is a category of game. I'm gonna need you to help my memory here, but I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about it. Is it a Metroidvania? Is that what they call it, or is it something else with a brain pun? It's Metroidvania.
No, it's Metroidvania. Like
I
the
like
idea
that a lot.
that you can like you're gated by lack of knowledge, and when you learn something, that's
Yeah.
no longer like an impediment to you. And you'll find that like I'll tell you right now, like this is like the minorest spoiler, but I'll tell you right now, like the information about this is in the security room. If you haven't read it yet, it's not like a big deep secret. There's
Oh,
something in there that's literally like blue post-its mean this and
the
red
red
post-its
ones.
mean this, and you're suddenly
Yeah.
like, oh, and that changes the way you look at like everything because you've seen post-its in both colors potentially at that point.
Yeah, and
And you're like, oh,
I don't remember what the blue. I remember what the red said. I don't remember what it says about blue.
I think blue is always true, red is always a lie.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
I
easy
think
enough.
that's the color code.
That is what I remembered red. That seems kind of
Yeah.
useless for blue, but okay.
And what's interesting is if you go look at the wall in the security room, it says like the doors to the antechamber are always open and it's red. So you know like they're locked. You have to figure out how to open those doors. You get the antechamber right now on a run if you really wanted to, just by being smart at how you drew rooms.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't mean anything because you can't open the door. like you have to start learning, how do I open these doors? You know,
Yeah.
and you'll stumble into that. That's what's cool about just doing the runs and trying to get deeper and deeper. And suddenly, like, oh, that opened this one. There's 3 entrances. Like, how do I open the other ones? You know, so on and so forth.
For me,
Um,
this has been a game that I play after The Last of Us. And we can kind of come back to that one.
it's a good chill
But
game.
I don't get to play The Last of Us until about 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that game will take, but like I'm playing it as if it's Resident Evil. So I'm on edge, not ready to go to sleep whenever I finish it. So that's where I've been playing Blueprints. And so for this to not be a game I would typically play, and I definitely won't come back to it after I beat it, I imagine I will stick with it at least as long as I'm playing The Last of Us.
And that's a good come down. And that'd probably be based on the length of Last of Us, like enough time,
Yeah.
assuming you feel like you're making progress. And the good thing is there's enough guides out there that, like, if you feel like you're stuck by one thing, you can look it up. And pretty much everybody's pretty respectful about understanding like how many secrets are in that game and avoiding spoilers to try to answer your question as directly as possible. Even I don't know if the culture has changed around this as it's gotten further from release, but early on, like if you'd go on Reddit, people would say, answer your question, and then might be like, for a little more detail about this room, spoiler, and they do like the spoiler block that you have to click to like reveal it, because everybody's being so careful about revealing what they could. So that's the nice thing, is like, because it's not your style of game and you're playing it late at night, like there might be times where you're just like, dude, how do I open this thing?
I
How do
did that
this
yesterday.
Thing? Get that one thing, you know.
I was playing the game in that room outside where you've got the 1 pink and the 4 yellows.
You're trying to get them
And I thought I understood like the mechanic of doing it, but it wouldn't. And so I looked it up, and it was like, do this once, now click this one once, now click the pink one 4 times. And like, I was like,
oh, you followed that much to a T?
yeah. I was like, well, I'm never gonna on my own click that pink button 4 times to get me there. So that was worth it. And it didn't really give me anything that I needed necessarily, but
yeah, I think the only thing I'd say about that is like, do it only if you're stuck and don't want to fully lose out on something you're working toward.
Well, I did it for like 15 minutes. That's a long time of just like,
yeah,
I'm ready to move on.
But there are things in that game that I will say, like, if you can avoid it, try to, because there are things that you feel like, oh, that took the reward away a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think I did that with one thing and I felt bad about it, and I didn't look anything else up, because I was just like, for what this is, I want to feel like I did XYZ. Now, for that same puzzle, I did it a little bit differently because I thought I understood what I was doing and didn't. So I actually just Googled, what's the goal of it? And then once I was like, okay, I'm trying to get all the corners yellow. Then I didn't look at the solution, but I understood what I was doing.
See, I figured that part out, but then I thought what was happening was basically the 4 immediately surrounding the pink. It would just basically like kind of move around like a clock, and that's and it doesn't do that exactly, and that's what I couldn't figure out. If it's not doing that, then what is it doing?
Yeah.
Tell me if this is a spoiler, because I go to the breaker room, and there's the 4 switches for the locked rooms, or the powered on, powered off, whatever it is. And then there's like 4 or 5 little green lights. It says like, it's got 3 letters, maybe like VAT or something, but there's 4, 5, 6 something. You just go through and click all of them you want to, and it turns them all green. I don't have any idea of what it's doing. Is what it's doing, is that a spoiler?
You're talking about on the breaker?
Yeah. It's like in the middle of it.
So I can't remember if it's in there or something else. I thought like something about it was taped up on the breaker, but it might be somewhere else. But you'll get that answer later. Cool. And that won't even be what it does necessarily. Like, you might find a note that explains part of it and another note that explains another part of it, that kind of thing. And you'll know immediately because it's got those icons.
Yeah.
That's a tough puzzle once you know what you're doing too. Anyway, big fan. I'm like you. I mean, I wouldn't say these aren't my games entirely. I actually went through a pretty big kick. I don't know if you remember this, but maybe 2 years ago, I got kind of into a few puzzle games. I had never played Portal. I had never played Talos Principle. So I started playing some of those games. I've played The Witness before, which I liked. My only complaint about The Witness was like the core of the puzzles. And I know there are bigger environmental puzzles, but were all these sort of like line-based puzzles. And I just found that a little bit boring, that all the puzzles were like the same concept. What I loved about Talos Principle, that's probably my favorite puzzle game, because there's like 5 core concepts. They kind of continually build on each other and add the elements from all of them. And that was nice. Blueprints feels closer to that. But for me, it's a mix of the art style, like the music, kind of the indiness of it, adding roguelite, which I think works for a puzzle game like this for what it's trying to do. I liked it. I mean, like, I think it will be a lot of people's game of the year contenders, especially as people
Yeah.
who are like digging deep and seeing like what the full story is. And I'm sure that drip feed of unlocking the mystery is satisfying and cool. It's just like for me in a year with so many games, if I had nothing else right now, or I was a casual gamer who really liked puzzle games, I could see this being a game of the year, game you spend all that time on. But knowing like, all right, I'm playing this, and now Expedition 33 is coming out, and then Doom's coming out, and then then the Nintendo Switch is here, and at the time Grand Theft, I was just like, there's no way I can just sit here and play 100 hours of this game. It's not
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, if you see its name printed anywhere, though, it's not printed, but it's got Perfect 10, Game of the Year. Like everyone is saying that about it, which is impressive. And then it'll get some kind of an award for sure. But
yeah, I think there are like indie games of the
well,
year,
you
or
did
just a game
include
like
it
getting nominated.
in like a running list of you
Yeah.
either said Game of the Year or you said Perfect 10, one or the other. But you were early on
I
that
said it
train
was a
as well.
contender. I think is how I'm labeling those for now. As you know, I've got like a game to dethrone, but it's not been dethroned yet. I don't think. Or has it?
Segue.
Because that's our next topic. Okay, so out of nowhere, and I mean this for me, like I don't even know if we've discussed this game ever until it got here.
I think you're going to be doing all the talking here. So I think I finally realized what this game was whenever I was watching its video on the PlayStation Store, because I'm still trying to figure out, do I want to get it on PlayStation? Do I want to get it on PC? Because if it's PlayStation, I can play it at night upstairs.
Yep.
But that means I've got to wait until I get all these other things. If I do it on PC, I got to do it downstairs, but it means I might be able to play it during the day.
Yep.
Point being, when I was watching the game video, I think I remembered it being the one where I said something about it looked good or whatever, and your immediate comeback was something to the effect of, a hot girl main character, yeah, sounds right up your alley, or something. Like, I think that was the back and forth whenever we watched this in its direct.
I don't know if this was in PlayStation Direct. I know what game you're talking about. It wasn't this.
It's not this one?
No. And I think it's a game that's coming soon, though. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, let me know. It looked like a Dark Souls type.
No, it is a Dark Souls type. It was called like Lost something. I don't remember what it's called, but I know the game you're talking about. Because it felt like the reason I was making that joke is that was when we were in the midst of like Stellar Blade. And it had
Stellar Blade, baby. Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. I hate those kind of names. Similarly to like last year, Metaphor Refantasio, like it becomes Metaphor. For most people, this has become Expedition 33. This game is how would I describe it? I'm glad because we haven't talked about a ton. I've dropped like little things, but I'm just going to kind of give you the full gist now. But this game is essentially at its like fastest elevator pitch, I would say to you, like this is the game that I think Final Fantasy fans wish that Final Fantasy was still making. Like this is what feels like Final Fantasy X. Like this is what Final Fantasy 11 should have been, like the next real Final Fantasy game. It just has the vibe immediately. Like there are differences, of course, but like just the way the party feels, I think some of the way the world feels, and then most importantly, the combat. So just to the game, I don't know if you know the plot at all, but this is all revealed in the first like 20 minutes of the game.
Nope.
Essentially, the game is about these people who live in sort of like a French-inspired world. At least it looks like that. You can see an Eiffel Tower. It looks like it's like melted in the background and whatnot. And you find out that your characters are going to prepare for what is called the Gamage, which is every year a paintress who lives like way off in the distance by like this giant monolith will stand up once a year, and she takes out her number and writes a new number on this big monolith that goes down one tick from the previous year.
I guess she
when that
writes
happens,
33 this year.
Sure, it's 33 this year. And what that means is that everyone over that age just gets Thanos snapped like out of the world.
Wow.
And every year for the 100 years, well, it hasn't been 100 years, but it started at 100 and has been counting down since. So it's been 67 years at this point. Typically a group of people who are that age, because 33-year-olds are now the oldest people alive, and they know they will be snapped away in the next Gamage. They go out on an expedition, and then there are occasionally people who like volunteer and go sooner for one reason or another. But an expedition is sent out in an effort to go try to take down the paintress and stop this from happening anymore. that's the setup for the game. So you're following Expedition 33, who is going out on this most recent quest to do that. And if you're doing the math, right, like at some point, like you're hitting the waning years of having like a productive expedition, right? Like 33, I think it was a smart number that they picked because it's sort of a mix of people who are still like physically capable, but also a little bit more mature and smart and have experience and have trained and learned from elders or whatever. But it means like most people's parents are gone, right? Like it's just, it deals a lot with grief of losing people on like an understood schedule, and also what would this mean for a world? How are people processing this? What does that do to you psychologically? Like, there's a lot of really good, not like overly complex, but like sophisticated, interesting thoughts and things that are done in ways that aren't overly like involved in the game. Like, but that voice acting is so good, the dialogue is so well written. Like, it's not like it's so far up its own butt, but it really does get you kind of thinking about things in an interesting way. Like, you can't help but sit there and be like, what if I lived in this world? What would that feel like?
We'd be
And that's
dead.
cool. But yeah, it'd be long. We both be long gone. But the thing that's really cool about it is that the combat. So it's set up like a Final Fantasy game. Like I said, it teams up. Obviously, the expedition leads you to have like a kind of your party set up, and you know, the world's is sort of like based in sort of like half like true French culture, but then the other half like very fantasy. Like stuff is like kind of suspended and floating in the air, like you can see behind me. This side. Um, you have that mix of like kind of cool, almost like actually they mixed kind of Parisian style, but also like Art Deco kind of mixed, even though that's like much in the future from what the design of the game looks like otherwise. And then all added on top of that is more your fantasy stuff, right? Like all the creature designs and stuff like that. I know what it sounds like, but I also know I'm not the only one who's claimed this. The other part of the influence, though, back on this game, and it pulls from a lot of games, JRPGs and other stuff, but there is a Souls fingerprint on this game, and that comes in two forms. One is enemy design and like boss design. Like some of
They're
the ways they
huge.
come out, they're big, but like, kind of the weird designs, kind of like a little bit darker than like a Final Fantasy game might be. Like it's a little, I'd say a little bit more of like a dark fantasy than like Final Fantasy is. And then the other half of it is that while it has Final Fantasy and Persona, I'd say like a mix of those two style turn-based combat, the other portion of that combat is real-time focus. So like your attacks have like a quick time event, which is kind of whatever, but like if you time it and get perfect, you're gonna get more damage. There are repercussions for missing that on some moves. That's done in an interesting way, but it's mostly defense. So every attack from an enemy you can dodge or parry, or like essentially later in the game you get a jump and then like a mega parry. And the jump and mega parries have kind of like visual cues that make sure you know that it's that, but otherwise you can dodge or parry. The difference between those two is dodging has a little bit more of a gracious window. So like before you fully understand like a boss's attack patterns, you can use dodge, and you'll actually see it will say dodge like if you do it properly, and if you do it like really well, it will say perfect. Perfect dodges could get you rewards kind of based on your build. Like there are items called luminas, which think kind of like charms in Hollow Knight, right? Like you could put on a lumina that says I get more action points if I do a successful dodge. But more importantly, with a parry, once you get the perfect timing on your dodge, that means that it would have been in the parry window. So once you're getting perfect all the time on your dodges, like, okay, I could switch to parry. And the reason to do that, the risk goes up because you're more likely to get hit because of the smaller window. But if you successfully parry an enemy's attack or their combo, then you do like a pretty big counter attack and will get damage on them. So what's cool about this game is you could win and take no damage despite what your level is at any point in the game
Just
against
by
any enemy. If you're
having the parry
willing to like
figured out.
learn the move. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now they're hard, right? And they obviously play a lot with, especially what like Elden Ring and the later Dark Souls games have been doing, where enemies might go like,
Yeah.
and then you like they do a lot of that, and you got to like learn it because it's not just gonna be like, whoa, 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 but it becomes like a rhythm game where all of a sudden you're like, oh, this boss does like a whoa, 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 and you got to get all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels so good, man. And especially there are moves where like a boss might be going after your whole party and you hit like a 4 combo parry on them, and all of a sudden like everybody like freeze frames and like they're back flipping, and one character's like sliding under the boss and smash him in the back, and like it just feels so satisfying to pull that off. But then the other part of it that's cool is you have a party of 3 people that you fight with at a time, and each character has their own mechanics. And it's not done in a way that's like overly complex, but like an example of one, there's a character named Lune who's kind of your mage, and when she does like an ice attack on an enemy, she leaves on her weapon what's called a stain. So all of a sudden you have like in the corner like a little 4-dotted weapon you can see, and it might put like a little white pip in it. And then you you can synergize that. Okay, my fire move will consume my ice moves, but they give me 2 fire stains. And it consumes the ice move to do like added damage. So if you do ice then fire, your fire move has done more damage. Now you got 2 stains. And all of a sudden there are moves that pay off if you can fill all 4 of your stain slots. You can like consume them all to do like a mega lightning strike. And that's how Lune works. And then you have another character who might work entirely differently, right? Like, and what's cool is none of it's like onerous. It actually just makes it so that when you're swapping your party around, it's not like boring. You're not going and picking like fireball, like attack, whatever. Instead, you're setting up combos because you might be like, oh, if I have this character catch this person on fire, my slash attack actually heals me for 20%. And I can constantly like be synergizing that and never have my health go down while attacking the enemy. And there are endless, I'm not going to go on, but there's like endless versions of that in this game where you can build it however you want, put on certain charms on these characters where right now my Lune like can't die because she's got like, if she takes damage past a certain point, she puts like a shell up, and then if she takes damage beyond that, she has like an automatic res, and then when she heals herself, she heals the whole party, and if anyone else heals, they heal her. And so she's just like this witch who just like floats up and like dive bombs people while constantly getting healed by teammates, and you're just like, I'm a golden god.
Did
All the
you
while,
did
if your
you
build's not perfect, you're dodging because you're doing the Dark Souls side of things. So it doesn't
yeah.
mean you have to have like min-maxed everything,
Did you get her set up that way based on your choices, or is that just the path of her character?
That's based on my choices because she can be like a healer or she can be big attacker, right? Like almost everyone has like a couple ways you can go with them. There's one character named Mael who's like a fencer, and she's like your big damage person. She kind of like, she has attacks that will set up other attacks. She has 3 stances. One's defensive, one's offensive, and one's called her virtuose stance. And basically like, this is just an example of her moves. She has a move called Spark that will catch an enemy on fire. And then she switches to defensive stance, which just means she takes less damage. The stances aren't really that important, other than trying to get to virtuose stance. Now that the enemy's on fire, you have an attack that says, if enemy's on fire, do added damage and switch to virtuose stance. Well, the reason that matters is your virtuose stance does 200% damage. So that's not 200%, like it's 200% additional damage, I think. So it's like triple damage. And so you're like, well, I'm going to get her there every time. That's always my goal.
Always.
But then remember what I was saying about Lune? If she can drop fire bombs, you can skip that first move and automatically do that move, and you're just sitting in virtuose stance. You can pick other moves that keep you there. You can do stuff to maintain your AP. So I've got this little like 16-year-old girl who's the only younger person who volunteered to come, and she's like tiny, like 16-year-old redhead who like just like starts firing off and smashing box. Like it's the opposite of what you expect in the game, where like your big dude is like your heavy hitter. This girl's just like with her little rapier, just like bang, 50,000 damage. You're like, oh my god, because you've teed it up. So you just start feeling out the builds and who you like, and you're constantly trying to keep people equally leveled. So I'm like rotating everybody in the party, and
Ooh.
I like everybody.
I don't like that part. That feels like Pokemon to me.
Well, there's good and bad about it. The good thing is that people not in your party still get a little bit of experience, so they don't get left like way behind. The other good thing is like there are story beats that automatically make you have people in the party, so they kind of stay level, and they all have strengths. Like the good thing is I rarely feel like I'm like, ooh, I wish I didn't have to have this person in the party. I like them. Instead, I usually can't decide like who to leave out because I like everyone's mechanics, so it doesn't even feel bad. It's almost like I just automatically look and I'm like, oh, that person's fallen 2 behind. I'll drop 2 people out and put them back in, and you're just, the only time it would matter is if you have like a heavy synergy going. You might want to have like, you might want to platoon and be like, I know I want these 2 people together, and I know I want these 2 people together, and be swapping them back and forth. It's not a big deal. Format of the game quickly. I don't want to spend all time on this, but it's like levels. And then eventually, as you get through, like when I say levels, like zones, kind of like open zones, but they're not big. It's not an open world game in that sense. And then when you get done with those, you have like an overworld map, like you would in like a Chrono Trigger or the older Final Fantasy games, where you're small and you've got like the big world map, and you can kind of go around and figure out where you want to go play next, like a Super Mario World, almost more like that. And you're like, okay, I'll go do this level, this like optional thing, or you can go on and go into the zone of your next main area. So it's not an open world game. I don't think I would call it that. You just have like a world map. And in fact, when you approach certain things, they might say like the gate that you can go in might be kind of reddish, and it says danger. Like if you're under leveled, like I said, you could power through that if you just want to go spend time learning all the boss moves, but you'll probably get one shot by hits from them. But I've heard plenty of people be like, "Oh, I did it. I spent like a half hour on it, learned all the moves, parried them every time until I beat them." And then you're rewarded with an item that's probably a lot better than the stuff you already have. So it could be worth your time if you want to do that. But what's nice is like it doesn't let you go wander into a zone you have no business being in yet. Like it will literally say before you enter like the Mystic Woods or whatever, and it'll say like danger in red font under that, letting you know like you're not leveled to what you should be to come in here, but they'll still let you walk in.
Mm-hmm.
Then other stuff is gated by your movement mechanics. Like you unlock the ability eventually to go in water or to fly, and so certain things you can't get to until you have those abilities, and that's kind of how they get you from going too far. But I like it because you and I think are more similar in this. Like I never felt like paralyzed by choice or being like, oh, there's too much to do. You just kind of like, there's my main mission, I want to level up a little bit, so I'm going to go into these like things I've wandered across, which are usually like smaller little sub levels or just a boss or like a trial or a fun platforming challenge or something or stuff like that. So I don't know if you have other questions about the game, but that's kind of like the gist of it. I'd say the story is awesome. The combat feels awesome. The fact it was made by essentially a 30 dev team. I know there's some exceptions, like they hired animators to help and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like they found their soundtrack guy because they liked his SoundCloud. The soundtrack, dude, when I tell you, it's like incredibly good. Like it's 8 hours long. It's on Spotify. I just put it on when I work sometimes because it's mostly lyricless. Or if it has lyrics, it's kind of like a choir singing in French, so it doesn't distract you.
Don't know what it says.
But it's this mix of like kind of like French sounding, like horns or whatever, but like sometimes brings in like 80s like synthwave beats, and it's just this like very interesting like mix of sounds. I'm
You
gonna send
said
you when we're done podcast.
you said a trigger word for me, and I imagine it's not a big deal, but you said stances. This is not like
Yeah,
a conscious decision to be in this stance versus another, as far as like you have to do a thing to switch them.
no, it's not stances like in a like Neo sense. It's
Right.
more like I mentioned everybody has their mechanics. Like basically it just means when you're in a certain stance, like a move will tell you. When you pick your move, it says under it. Ends an offensive stance, and under it might say like offensive stance enhances this move, adds like 50% crit chance or whatever. So you just know you can like buff a move by having done another move previously. So
Right.
it's more of the puzzle of the combat for that person, but it's not like
Like, yeah.
everybody has their own version of that exact system. It's just called stances because she's a fencer.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So it seems like that is a very turn-based or almost like a card
Yes.
game thing where like you do this attack and then your next move will be a defensive one, kind of a thing. Like if it's that direction, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you might just do that because like, oh, it might say similar to a Final Fantasy game, Goblu is powering up and his like next turn is a big move.
Right.
And so that might just make you think like, oh, I'll attack him with this move that ends in defensive stance, so I take a little less damage if I get hit, right? None of the real-time stuff, like I said, every real-time action in the game to attack an enemy is a square that a line moves around and you try to stop it on one end of the square for like a perfect attack. The attack side has no real-time element to it besides that. It's more the choices. All the Dark Soulsy stuff is defensive, dodging, parrying, jumping to avoid attacks. And as far as I know, everything is parryable or dodgeable. There's no like unparryable attacks, except I have seen a couple enemies who put like a debuff on you that you cannot dodge. It's like a part of the boss mechanic, I guess. So like, oh, this boss silences you, so you got to beat him without you doing your spells or whatever. But it
So
has all that like classic Final Fantasy buffs, right? Like there's shell and uh, what did I just say? When I just said silence and all that kind of stuff. Curse, the ones where like if you don't get rid of this in like 4 turns, you'll just die. Stuff like that.
So how far in on you are you?
I could roll credits right now. Like we could hang up and I could go do it. Like I know what the final task is. But I'm avoiding it to get like as strong as I can. And I've heard like the main story bosses are not that crazy. You could beat the game, I think, in like 28 to 30 hours. And there are people who are like, if you do everything, it's like a 50 to 60-hour game. So there's like double content if you want to go find everything. And I've already done that most of the way because I've loved it. So I'm just stalling beating it at this point because my next game will probably be Doom. And so I just know I've got another week of just trying to milk this one, I think.
Yeah. So your you don't have to score it, but stack it up to your other current, because I assume this is another Matt Game of the Year contender. Is it going to be
this
your
is a 10 out of 10. Blueprints, I don't know if it's a 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10. Kingdom Come's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's like a decision I got to work on because I'm really wrestling with how different they are, right? Like these games set out to do such different things.
Yeah.
And like Kingdom Come is this weird game where I could see a world where I score this game and make it my game of the year, Clair Obscur. But then in my all-time rankings, Kingdom Come is actually above it. And I know that doesn't make sense, but like there's something about like what this game's accomplished in the landscape of the year, but then also like what did Kingdom Come mean in like the scheme of all games that I've ever played? Like what happens when a game comes along that like defies the type of game I've ever been interested in and actually doubles down on the like little stuff and I still manage to love it. Like that's where I could walk away being like, oh,
Yeah.
like, that's actually still in my top 10 and Clair Obscur isn't, I don't know.
Yeah. Like you can recognize something is objectively good and better than something else, but the something else is something more to you, in which case it might be a lesser game. Or we talk about it with like TV shows and movies. Like I realize this is not a good movie, but it means something more to me, and so it's
well, that's the beauty of game of the year, right? Like we're not saying best game of the year. It's like my game of the year, your game of the year. That's what's fun about it. And like I don't even know which one I'd say is better, honestly. Like I'd say probably the better produced and made game is Kingdom Come. Because like in this game being only 30 people, every now and then there's just like a slight jank you see every now and then. But like all things considered, if I didn't tell you one or something that I've ever seen, you may never notice it, right? And it might be patched by the time you get to it. And I'm playing on Game Pass, which means I've actually been playing the bulk of mine on a Series S, which is a weak ass machine. Like when I play on my PC, I'm like, oh, this is what this game looks like. You know what I mean? Like I would recommend getting it on obviously PC or even if you did it through Game Pass, though, you'd get the high quality one. So
if you're ready to move from that, that is kind of where I wanted to take you. Where should I play it? Because again, I don't want you to just factor in what it's going to look like. I'm trying to consider the mindset. Like, where do I need to be whenever I play a game like this? Because again, right now I've got the PlayStation's upstairs, so that's a nighttime on a couch. I'm winding down before bed. If it's on the computer, then it's in my office. So it's either I'm downstairs when I would rather be upstairs at night, or it's I've got a lull during the day at work and I just want to squeeze something else in. So like, what's the better mindset for playing this game?
I would say it's a win-win. Like a good example is, as you and I both know, like Brandon doesn't play a ton of games anymore, not like a ton of time. But I have my app on my PlayStation app, like basically notifies me if like you, him, or like
Michael he's been on there.
He pops in like regularly during the day and whatever. Like, so you can tell it's drawing him in, and he's doing it when he can between work. But there's two things about this that I would say do it upstairs. It's not super stressful, right? Like add some of the Dark Souls like boss stuff, but for the most part, it's a game like you're leaned back. You're not like sitting up on your couch, like you can chill. There's nothing in this game you wouldn't want Piper or Brittany to see. Like, I mean, you're not running around half naked. There's not like uber violent, right? Like it's like a fantasy game. There might be some scenes where like some darker stuff happens, but you're talking minutes in total to a 30-hour game. I just think it'd be more comfortable to do up there. And then what I would say to you is set up your PS remote play on your PC. Like it could not hurt to have the ability to stream it from upstairs to your PC to knock stuff out. Because for the most part, especially if you're not doing like a main thing or a hard boss, like I've streamed games that did matter. Like I've played long stretches of Elden Ring that way and done bosses and it's fine. But if you found like, oh, the timing's weird, you could go explore and do something else. I think you could still knock out chunks if you had a free half hour during the workday
Yeah.
to do like littler stuff that you wanted to get done. And it would, I think then you'd still have the ability though to, my short answer would be like, put it where you're more likely to play it more. And I feel like that's upstairs. Because then you can play longer into the night because it's going to suck you in. Like there will be moments where I don't want to stop right now. And I think you're more likely not to stop if you're like hanging out up on the couch rather than like, oh, where the dog, like where, you know, I want to go be in social or daylight or night or comfortable or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then in the stealing away minutes you could do via remote play because they might total be 2 hours of what you put in the game or something, you know.
I do need to set that up. I was actually going to play today, but being in the office and the PlayStation's upstairs now, like I was going to play like several times, like just do a quick run, just like another Blueprints, like give me another couple of days.
That's
but that would have been upstairs, and like to this point, I haven't really introduced video games to Piper just because as soon as she's gonna lock on to them, and like which is great. I want her to, but I don't want her to yet because I feel like I only get to play so much. If I now have to also share with you and you take all of that, you're gonna junk up my controller. It's gonna get broken. You're gonna sneeze all over it. It's gonna have milk and whatever. But yeah, so yeah, I might do that because I have multiple reasons to set up the app down here on the office. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's the move. And you're like hitting PlayStation fanboy mode where I'm waiting for you to buy that like remote play machine at some point too. So
the Portal.
Yeah.
Oh, so no, well, maybe no. I don't know what that is. If it's not the Portal,
I think it is.
Maybe this is a reasonable segue to lesser events. Are you good on Clair Obscur proper?
That's the end of my list. Other than like Night Rain's coming, and we'll be playing it, so everybody should watch for us. I imagine we'll at least put some episodes up. We gotta talk to Brandon and see what he's willing to do. But
yeah, that is one that there's no crossplay. I'm a little disappointed because that's one where I have to bring the PlayStation back down here. Like the PlayStation upstairs is great for me to go play games and then talk about them on the podcast.
Yeah,
I cannot do that for something I'm trying to record. But then here's my segue. I'm meh on the Switch 2. I've got it right now for FOMO's sake.
Is this your bonus topic?
There were a handful of things. This is one where I have the Switch 2. I have that pre-order. I'm currently in on it. I don't even really care. It just feels nice to have it there. I'm wondering if it isn't a better fit to use that same amount and instead get a second PS5 so that
don't do it.
The Pro can sit upstairs and I can do the nice TV things, and then the second one can be down here for whenever I need to stream because as you and I have seen, I have to strip the Pro away in order to even be able to record it. Like we had to turn HDR, we had to turn all the stuff off in order to even be able to record it in a way that I can do both. So like there's a world where that makes more sense to me.
I get it, but I wouldn't do that. I mean, here's why. I think the most important reason is like I definitely see for what we're doing here on the channel, like there being Switch 2 games we want to do and talk about.
Yeah.
Like access to the machine matters more. And I could see like ultimately still like the amount of Night Rain to the channel not being that much, right? Like checking it out early on, but like every Monday night, I don't know if we'll record it. The only way I see a world where you and I suddenly try to do it 2-player if they add that ability or whatever is like because we love it so much, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think what's more important is like as Switch 2 stuff starting to come in earnest, like of being able to talk about play those, and it solves every dilemma you have, right? Like say you love the Switch and it has the capability now to receive these modern games. Shit, man, like there's a world where we're choosing games on Switch 2 because you can go drop it in a dock upstairs and come drop it in a dock at your desk. That's $80, and that solves all your problems, especially with the power it has now.
But that is so a benefit to that is the same way that I have to stream the PS5. That also works for the Switch. So whenever that day comes, I can stream the Switch, no problem.
But you can stream the Switch.
We'll record it. So whatever this thing's called.
But I just mean practically, like having the machine on each floor, you'll be able to do with the dock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're not lugging the PlayStation around and replugging it, and you're just dropping in like, boop, and then play.
Yeah.
And buying a new dock is 80 or 100 or whatever bucks. That's worth it to have like in different spots.
Yeah. But to the point
And
though,
then you're like, well, I want my downstairs pro controller. Like that's what I did. I had a controller for each floor.
you get your random floor. Let that be your don't tell me. What's the purple one? Oh, GameCube controller.
I'm not buying the GameCube controller. People love that thing. I think
They
it looks
really
insane.
do. That's the thing. I've got a friend who played GameCube, and she got so excited when she realized that she could play older games on the Switch, because otherwise she plays her games. She rents them from the library. This is outrageous, but that's what she does.
I didn't know that was a thing you could do.
Yeah. And there's plenty of them
Good for her
that
if
she
she
was
saves money.
she was a big Gamecast person, such that she is in any GameCube. Yeah, sorry. So I was telling her like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but you can actually like they're bringing that now to the Switch too. So what are you thinking? And she definitely won't, but she is one that if she bought the Switch 2, she would absolutely go out and get that controller to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I could see that being like I don't know about like a system selling feature, but it's smart they didn't put it on the Switch 1 at least, for people who, because I mean, it also makes sense. The GameCube collection, I imagine those games are now getting to a point as well where it probably can't run, to the degree you would want it to on the original Switch anyway.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting into a little bit more modern of games. Like that was the original Resident Evil 4, right? Like that takes you up through like what 2010 or something, maybe a little less.
What?
We was
wait.
out
GameCube was the original Resident Evil 4?
I thought so.
I mean,
Maybe
surely
not.
it was on other stuff too, though. You're not telling me it was like an exclusive or something.
GameCube is before Wii, right? Right before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Resident Evil was on Resident Evil 4 release date. Yeah, 2005.
So talking about the PlayStation 5 and where it's at right now, I can easily just like unplug it and carry it down here. I know your setup is much more permanent, so like the idea of moving that is kind of a pain in the neck for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of thinking Night Rain will be a problem because I'll have to carry it back a little bit more, but otherwise I was kind of thinking once
we could get it on Steam, and then if it doesn't work for Brandon, refund it, because Steam will refund you.
That's true.
So I still think we pitch that and see if it runs for him, and if it doesn't, oh my god, dude, hold on. My face is perfectly reflected in your microphone right now. Watch.
Yeah, I see that.
I see my mouth and it's so distracting now.
I started looking to see if you had some kind of like gestures or animations turned on. I was like looking at all my screens, like, is he doing something stupid? But
I
yeah,
just
no.
like, who's this like wobbly face guy?
It does look like you're like your chin's jutting down there. Nice.
The tongue is when you really get to see it in action. All right, that's enough of that.
What else?
Yeah, I think we should go that route. I think we talk to Brandon, try Steam.
Yeah. So and if we do that, then the PlayStation probably gets baked in much more permanently upstairs. Because I've already seen within 3 days, I've played 4 games that you and I have talked about for a long time now, and I'm making progress in all of them. And again, I don't have to try to record everything.
Yep.
I can speak to them now. Yeah.
Yep.
Tilu 2, which is what I've been playing on your recommendation. I think now, what did I tell you yesterday? Like 6 hours? Yeah. Top 5?
You told me 7, I think. 7.
So I'm probably 7-ish, 8-ish. I mean, I was telling you earlier today, I was at the TV station. So this game's been out for a while. Obviously, it's not spoiling anything.
But for folks who are watching and are watching the show, that's exactly how the show ended this week.
Oh, yes. So then, spoiler, I'm talking about a part apparently that was in the show. And if you've seen it, then you're already past me. I forgot about that.
Spoiler alert if you don't
Anyways, I'm at the TV station. I can just leave it at that. I used the environment in such a way that I could not have been more proud of myself. It was highly entertaining. It was great stuff. That's all we have to say about how far I've made it. But you were talking about, for storytelling purposes, there's things that this game does that cannot be done in other mediums. Like I
as
had said,
effectively
right.
in TV or other stuff. Yeah.
And so you had said that whenever I had said, I've already missed the boat on this one, so I'll just watch the show. And I'm
Yep.
sure that what you're talking about, I haven't met quite yet.
Correct.
My assumption is that it's something to do with switching personalities, so that I am both Ellie and whatever her name is. I feel like it's gonna have something to do. Yeah, yes, that you are controlling both of those. Regardless, as I'm looking for what that might be, what I'm noticing is that this game is something so far from Dark Souls that I I need more games like this. And what I mean
Because
by
it's
that,
story heavy, or what do you mean?
I mean that it is so low stakes at all times. Like you might be edge of your seat. I might be 10 hours into a game that is 4 hours of content because I'm so nervous and on edge that I'm like literally just crawling everywhere I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, but then something happens. Like I accidentally just went over a tripwire. I did not see it all. Exploded, boom, I'm dead. Just like that.
Yep. Yep.
Instant reload, I am right back there ready to roll again. So it allows me to keep track of what I'm doing and where I'm at. And I don't have to go back and fight hordes of people to get to that point. I haven't dropped every single thing. And I think we talk all the time. And I think I've told 2 people in the past week have asked me, what kind of games do I play? And I'm like, it's pretty much all, like, if you've ever heard of Dark Souls, it's pretty much
Yeah.
all derivatives of Dark Souls. I don't get a game like this, which I think is a more traditional game. I don't get that as often. Maybe I've not had it since I played the last one. And like for that reason alone, I'm glad that I'm playing this because it's just nice. I don't know what it is that I'm really trying to say. It's just a nice feature of a game to just be able to play it, and if you die, who cares? Just try it again.
I think that's a really interesting point because I've never really thought about it because like I feel like I played in 2020, which I was still playing Souls games then, but it wasn't, that genre has become more and more pervasive, right? Like it's starting, like metroidvanias used to be their own thing. Now most of them are like Souls like metroidvanias, or like whatever. So I think what's interesting about that, what you're saying there though, is I was thinking like, why is that? Part of it, to your point, is probably more of a classic game style, but also like what does The Last of Us in general excel at? Well, it's like storytelling, and I think probably
Yeah,
they do that on purpose so that like
you
it's not
stay in the
slowing the story
story.
from propelling forward. Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
you
I think
don't
it works
get
well.
so mad and frustrated that you forget what you've been doing, and you're not grinding in such a way that an entire session is grinding. Like the story
Yep,
is first and foremost. If they have to
the
hold your hand
closest,
to get you through it, then that's what they're
exactly.
gonna do.
Well, and the cool thing too, to your point, like the closest thing you have to grinding is like you're looking in everything for resources, but that's a survival game thing.
Right.
And what they balance well is like, I agree with what you're saying, 100%. I think it's a good point, like about it being good about just like you die, you get that like excessive death animation, and then it cuts to black, and
Yeah.
you're like right back at the beginning of that encounter. But I also like that they did a pretty good job balancing. Like it doesn't feel like it's like cheap combat just to have combat. It's still fun. It still
Hmm.
feels good to play. You still have to ultimately like solve the encounter that you're in. Like you'll die 5 times maybe in a room, but you're like, oh, I gotta be stealthy on this corner. You're ultimately like solving a puzzle. Like, do I get rid of this clicker now, or do I get rid of this guy, or do I snipe out this person so I can sneak around this way? And
Yep.
then you solve it, and you're in the next room. And if you die, you're in the next room. But I think they do a good job of it. Never feels like super punishing, but also it doesn't feel like cheap bad shooting combat they threw in just to throw in something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's important. So totally agree. I think I'll be really interested to talk to you in depth about it. We'll have like a spoiler section on a podcast in a month or two when you're done. Just
Hmm.
be like, what did you think about it? Because I could talk for hours about that game and what is it trying to say and what's it doing. And I think that'll be a fun conversation to have at the end. But in general,
Oh,
how would you say you're liking it so far? Like, if you had to give it a number score right now, it's hard to do because like you've seen a quarter of what like story there is to tell, and that's a big part of
right.
it.
I mean, it's silly to say 10, so I won't say that. Um,
And maybe a number score isn't even the right way to do it, but you know
yeah,
what
I
I mean.
mean, it's an easy between an 8 and a 9. Probably wouldn't take an argument at all to call it a 9, just because
Yeah,
It is fun. It is easy to play. It is very story driven. I just haven't got enough of the story quite yet.
Yep.
There's checkpoints all over the place. It's just an easy game to play.
Yep.
And honestly, where I had started by saying I've missed the boat on the game, maybe I watched the show instead.
Yep.
Playing a game like this, I actually wonder if, like, I could see where I wouldn't want to watch the show after because I don't like it's like Harry Potter stuff or like other wherever you ingest that story first. Anything after
Sure.
that is going to be a comparison, and it's not
Yep.
really going to ever add on to. It's always just going to stack up. Like it's going to be against it. It's not going to be appended to. And so I could see that if I follow this game through and I get into its story, I don't want to see a show that is how is it comparing to rather than how is it adding to. Although I will say the whole bit with Ron Swanson's character in The Last of Us season 1, I didn't remember any of that from
Yeah.
the game, and I think you'd already said like, well, it's not in the game. I definitely registered whenever me and whatever my friend's name is are walking around and they're talking. They never say his name. I don't think, maybe they do, but they're talking about this guy who lives by himself and all of the explosives. And she's like, well, what is
Yep.
being alone? Like that was nice. That I was like, I know exactly who they're talking about only
Yep.
because of the show that I watched. So,
Episode. Yeah, because in the game, Bill's there, but Frank's not, and you don't know a ton beyond that. And Bill's in a little bit of it, but like, I think that was going to be my thing for you, like, because I do agree with that. But uh, the reason I'd say it's worth watching the show is like, yeah, you have all the source content, but what's cool is they change things a little bit, and not just because some things work better for TV than a game, and they have to change some things. For example, one of those things, and I'm not going to talk about it right now, but because of some of my concern or not concerns, but some of the things that made me love the game because I talked about how they use interactivity. They have to rewrite some things to figure out how to make you feel similar things or what's the television comp to that to write that in. And so they're changing some things just to make it work better for TV. But also the reality is like if you turn The Last of Us 1 into a cinematic, a lot of what you're doing really is gameplay. Like a combat scene that takes you an hour in the game can be a 5-minute TV sequence to get the point across. So what you end up with is extra time to like explore people, give them more background,
yeah.
flesh people out. So the flip argument is what you also say often, which is like, I just want to be in that world or be with these people. And they do a good job of making it feel like that. And especially in part 2, where the cast is expanded out quite a bit, right? Like the first game is mostly Ellie and Joel and they come across people. The second game is much more like here's Dina, here's Tommy, here's Jesse, like here's all these new, here's Abby and her crew, and here are the Scars and all this, like all these new tribes and whatever, like that you'll start learning about. It's like, okay. And then they can explore like who are these people? What's the leader of this group like, and how did they end up that way? And you like, and it might only be a 5-minute backstory or like a cold open, but it's cool to get like more about that. And that Neil the other reason I like it is Neil Druckmann is the co-executive producer along with Craig Mazin, who made Chernobyl and a bunch of other great TV. So Neil is there, who created all of this in the first place, and like he's signed off on it. It's like not canon, so to speak, but like like the guy who made the original thing has made sure the spirit of that is living on in these characters. It's not an interpretation of it. So I think it feels better that way because you're almost seeing the guy who made it now have access to an HBO budget and tell this story in an expanded way with some of the best actors there are, and you're like, it pays off. So
Mm-hmm.
it's worth watching. That's my long-winded way of saying that.
I'm curious about one thing, if it is from the game or from the show. I know for sure in season 1 of the show, there's the whole hive mind thing, and if you step on a spore or whatever, like it wakes them up everywhere. Is that
Yeah, in the
a
show.
is that a show thing? Because I was consciously in the TV station as I'm moving around, I'm seeing some things on the floor, and
Yep.
I'm trying to sneak away. So it's like I need to not step on this, but it gets to a point where you can't not step on it. And
Right.
it definitely felt like, oh, well, nobody felt that. So is that a
Yeah, you're
show thing?
conflating them. Yeah, so it's a show thing. There's a reason for it. So basically, what they said is they replaced the idea of spores in the game. It's spores. You put on the mask.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember, like in the first game, that was kind of how you could learn that Ellie was immune. She didn't put the mask on. She didn't need to. So what they were worried about is like, well, we can't have this TV show and pay all this money for these great actors and have like Pedro Pascal covered up by like a face mask the whole time. Pedro even jokes like, yeah, they already did that to me in one show, like talking about Mandalorian. So the idea was like, what's like a comparable thing to that where like the infection can spread or expand or take over places without it being a visual issue where they put on masks, and they thought of the like wood wide web, he calls it in his podcast, but like where you step on it, it triggers it. The spores don't necessarily trigger you, but they were always signs of zones that had been like taken over. It was the same idea. And the other one makes more sense for a show, whereas the other makes sense in a game. It's just that's an example of a writing they just had to make it work better for TV. But there have been hints this season that they are going to start exploring the idea of spores anyways eventually. So they try to get true to the source material.
I keep waiting for boss fights. I'm not having them. I'm not very far.
Like versions of them. You'll have like big people, but like, or not literally people, but like there might be like a special kind of enemy or something.
Yeah.
But nothing like, definitely no health bar, but like there'll be a couple unique encounters and situations, but that's as close as a game like that gets. It's not even like a Resident Evil because Resident Evil has boss fights, but I don't describe it like they don't feel always necessarily like a Dark Souls boss.
I think
they can.
You already said encounter. That's what they do, like encounters.
Because
like you'll have no ammo, and then suddenly you got all your health, you got all your ammo. It's like, okay, what's in this?
Yeah, what's happening? yeah, exactly. There's a like I could only tell you right now, like I can only think of one thing I would call like a boss fight in Last of Us 2. So it's definitely not frequent. And Last of Us 1, I feel like the bloater in the gym is like the closest thing I can think of to a boss fight. But generally, man, yeah, that's like, again, in my top favorite games of all time. You've got all kinds of like cranky fanboys who hate that they made like some plot decisions that they did, but for the most part, as soon as you like see how the game concludes and like what direction it goes, whether you like what they're trying to say or not, like you'll be like, oh, I mean, they didn't just do that for no reason. I also like when games take away your plot armor, like stuff like that. It's more interesting. Games and shows. And I think the show's good, like retelling. I wouldn't say the show has exceeded the game in any way, but it's also, like I said, it feels more like it's just added to it. It feels like you have like an appendix or like an addendum, like just additional, like almost like DLC. But that's it. I think the last thing I want to talk about before we go is just what are we doing next? Like, I feel like we have, I didn't tell you this is coming, but like actual open forum to be thinking about what are we playing on our own, but also on the channel. One of us has to, I feel like, do Doom. And I would say typically that it would be you, like you're the Doom guy, but you're already cooking on other stuff. So I feel like I'm just gonna have to be Doom guy. And I'm bad at like first person shooters, man. And my computer might like roast. That might be the bigger problem. And I'm definitely playing on PC, so that might be the reason I have to buy something.
I will definitely be playing it because I skipped the last one.
I would argue this: you're gonna play on PC. It's a first person shooter. You're gonna play mouse and keyboard. You're also interested in. Oh no, we already talked about Clair Obscur though on your PS5. But I was gonna say Game Pass has Oblivion, Doom. It's all coming. Like Game Pass is crushing right now.
Yeah.
Blueprints is on Game Pass.
Well, I got Blueprints are free through PS Network, anyways. But
no, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's crazy how much is on Game Pass.
Yeah.
But it's not worth, I think, not being able to play upstairs, honestly. And a game, honestly, like Expedition, I've debated, like, I'll probably go buy it on another system because, like, knowing the background, the Sandfall Studios, their first game, I want them to get the money. The game had sold 1 million copies in 3 days, and they're just a brand new 30-person team.
Yeah.
And they sold the game. It's a 30 to 60 hour game for $50. Like, this is what happens when you don't like leave it in a giant AAA studio's hands. Mario Kart World's $80.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
I know Doom's what you're excited about next. Like, what are you waiting on this year?
Let's talk that one once we get closer to then, which I think is maybe just like what, a week or two.
Yeah, I think it's out in like a week and a couple days.
I'd say it's. I almost think it's better to see what you're playing next, because I was thinking about this the other day too, and I'm trying to be mindful for whatever reason. I don't know if it's your background, but we've dropped almost 3,000 frames, which is not a lot. It's not even 1%, but I don't know what on this would have caused that. So I want to be mindful. I don't want to drag it out if for some reason part of this is no good. But I was thinking for some reason, now it's up 3,100. Now it's, I don't know what it's doing.
It's just spinning right now, actually, but it's back. Okay.
I wonder. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with that.
Let's turn it off. Let's just see. I don't think it's that though, because I don't think it should matter. But I'll go into blackness.
Okay. Now I'm just about at 33, so I'll see if we change from there. I almost wondered though if we have two very different play patterns where at least up to this, because the PlayStation upstairs changes things. Now, granted, that's not going to be channel play.
I can already feel it. It is funny because already you're like, oh yeah, checked out this and this. I'm like, what?
Yeah. But I almost wonder if, like, as much as I want to play a game day of, you're also of the mindset. This is kind of like a 3-week probation. How are we feeling so far, kind of thing. Between the two of us, you are very much more of the mindset of when a new game comes out, you want to have that content ready for other people coming to learn about that game should they buy it. You want that traction. Where I, for my ability to play at length and just being able to sit and do the thing, and much more of a play the thing and do the once a week kind. I almost wonder if we'll get to a point where I'm just constantly finding games that are not new, and maybe they kind of settle into a certain style of game, and I kind of explore a broader topic or a broader exploration of a style of game that is not new, and so timing doesn't matter, while you are more on the forefront of what's new and pumping the content out for the people coming and looking for it.
Yep.
Because even if I do play Doom, that's not really a story game. That's not a good example. But say Doom was a big Kazan style whatever game people are going searching for. We both know I'm not putting out 10 episodes of content by day 2 of that game being released. So like if that is a goal, then that's a goal that I'm never going to meet. So we'll see what I'm waiting for next. I am waiting for Doom. And at least up until this point, I expected I'd play it for the channel. I don't care if I do or not, but I'm curious if, again, this is more kind of a reflective. I'm curious if my new game ad is playing it and then speaking to it on a podcast, and maybe in a future date, our podcasts are not monthly, they're bi-weekly, or maybe they're weekly. But again, at that point, I can actually contribute.
That becomes like a bigger part of the content for sure.
Yeah.
At least like, because you and I have talked about like, what does it mean for this channel in terms of like, do we want to be Let's Plays? Do we want to be, go-op things? Do we like, what do we like the most? Do we want to be first impressions? Like,
right.
What's successful? I think like, obviously there's a world where we could play what we want and has a following of what we want, and that would be fine, right? Like, it doesn't matter when you play the game. And I've talked about like part of it is out of necessity. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. And I think, like still having games that are part of the year's lexicon or whatever, like you're doing with Ender Magnolia, kind of covers it, even if it's last half of the year. And other games that you're just playing just to play, to like check things off of your kind of like long-term list, like a Last of Us kind of game. So
yeah, and like I wanted to make it a point to do blueprints so that, because I've seen it everywhere, and I could talk about it here, so that, because I know you played it, really liked it. I wanted to be top of mind with the game that's actually top of mind. So Clair Obscur, I don't know that I'll play it next necessarily, but I will play it this year because I want last year's game of the year. Like, I think I played like 4 games out of that entire list. Like, that's what I don't want to be
you
a
want to
recurring
see
thing.
all the options.
Yeah, I want to play all the things that people's talking about. I don't necessarily need to beat them, and I don't need to beat them quickly, but I want to have experienced all the things. So all of that is to say, when you ask what I'm playing next, I think the better question is what you're playing next.
I think it'll be Doom. I feel like I took like a screen grab of, like, made a document and it took a screen grab of games I want to play. I was trying to find those. I want to see if I can find them real quick. Because I did see a handful that are coming. So Doom Dark Ages, Night Rain. Those are the 2 for May, for sure. Unless I'm forgetting something. The big game in June that's coming out, this could be your game, although I guess you didn't do the other, but May is when, June is when Death Stranding 2 comes out. I won't be touching that game.
I'm very interested, but I never got around to the first.
I am interested I don't know if it's only on Switch, but I'd probably play it on Switch. But I know they made like a dark platformer, Hollow Knight inspired game that is technically in the Pac-Man universe called Shadow Labyrinth, and I'm extremely interested in what that looks like. So that's on the list. That's June. And then a game called Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. That's a Souls-like game. Looks very Black Myth. That's June. August, Metal Gear Solid is not for me. Lost Soul Aside is the game you were thinking of when I said Hot Girls. That's a Souls-like looking game. I don't think it actually is a Souls-like game, but I think that's the one we were talking about. And then Ghost of Yota is October, so I'd probably do that one.
Yeah, that's one. You can turn your background back on, by the way. It's still doing it. And again, we're just at like 1%, so it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
but there's going to be points. Ghost of Yotei, whatever you call it, Yotai, is one that very much got, like, I was excited. That was along with the pro pre-order, all that. So that's where it's like, I'm going to be sure and play the first one before I get to this one. I don't know, though, if that's actually the kind of game that I love. That kind of falls into a category.
World for one.
Yeah, that falls into the category of games that I feel obligated to like. Hot take here: Grand Theft Auto is also that for me.
But you don't like open world games,
right? I've never finished a Grand Theft Auto. I've played several. I've never come close to finishing one. I'll get it.
Did you touch Red Dead 2?
Yeah, I didn't make it very far.
It's that kind of game.
Yeah,
Witcher 3.
I usually fall off pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, a game that I've thought about. So before I got Blueprints, I was actually looking for Hollow Knight. And then I realized that they only have the PS4 version, which is obviously nothing wrong with that. But
yeah, I don't even know how you could improve it technically.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I will wait. I've been wanting to play Hollow Knight again for so long, and like all of those versions. And part of me was like, should I pitch the idea of picking up Nine Souls and getting to where you finished it and then keep it going? Because like just that style of game right now is like, that is what draws me in the most. And I was kind of torn.
You should do that over Hollow Knight because that's new, at least. Here's why: Silksong in the Switch Direct got a 2025 on it again.
Yeah.
So we're led to believe that's more possible than it's previously been. So I just think the idea of playing 40 hours of Hollow Knight and then immediately playing Silksong would take some of the luster off of that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you'd be fresher, but I don't think you're going to need to be fresh on the plot of Hollow Knight, you know?
But so here's the thing: a game like that, like, reasonable chance I'm more excited about Silksong than I am Bloodborne 2. They're both very, very high. Like,
I mean, Hollow Knight's also in my top 10 games.
Right. Sure. Like, neither could be higher, really. But if I think about playing Hollow Knight, if I play it for the channel, that's going to take away at least a little bit from playing it for myself.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm so torn about how to feel about that because I want to play it so bad. But if it turns into an Ender Magnolia,
yeah,
then like it's gonna be tough because, as everyone knows, I'm not done with Ender Magnolia, and that was the first game I started here. So I actually wonder, as of the two of us, you are the one who is very much better suited to streaming games. But I actually almost wonder if my play style, for me, isn't better suited to streaming games, because then it doesn't necessarily matter, did I do episodes 1 through 100, did I finish the game before I can move on to the next game, but rather I can play this game and play that game and keep playing all the other games. And again, this is kind of like a retrospective 3 months in kind of a thing. Yeah,
this is where it ranks on my all times
over Last of Us. Nice.
Last of Us 1. Look where Last of Us 2 is, though. This is hard, this whole section, because you end up with this thing of like, you know, Dark Souls is like more of an entity now than a single game. Like, I like the entirety of what they've made. Like, when I'm like, do I like Dark Souls or Bloodborne more, or Dark Souls 3? Like, I literally can't choose because they each give me something different, you know?
Right.
Like, I could make an argument to myself about why Bloodborne should be number 1 and why it should be where it is, you know? Anyway, I want to pull it out because I was curious. This is what I have. What's right behind my head? Demon Souls.
Demon Souls. That's another thing. The people have been clamoring. They want to know where Demon Souls is.
So it's funny you said I uploaded it tonight. I could show you evidence. I realized because I had to cut something in, I put it off for so long. But I
Yeah.
was like, all right, I need to just do it.
I assume it worked
I
though.
printed both.
I got the
So
text
I
you
had to
sent
open
me.
it in the PlayStation app. There's no way to export it. So I had to screen capture on my phone and then get all my stuff to go away. It looked really good. And that's why I sent the screen recording to you today so I could get it back on my computer to upload it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
dedication.
easy.
We probably could have said it took X amount of minutes and we got it. Now here we are. But
Yeah. No, we have to show it. I liked your little dance too because I was like, how long should I leave this till it fades? And I saw you start like wiggling around. I was like, perfect.
the one you started, I thought you had already cropped it and nobody else will see it. But I treated every single one as if it was the one. So like there were a few where maybe I didn't, but for the most part, I started strutting up to that guy like this is going to be the one. So it's going to look like I'm stalking this dude and I'm going to take him down. And so the one you started, it was like a 1.5-minute clip. I was like, oh, he got it. And I'm watching myself like, dang, I was confident. I knew this was going to be the one. And it's like, nope. And you move the slider over a minute later. It's like, oh, yeah, I kind of did it.
I was like, wow, because you did look like you knew somehow. And I was like, did he do this every run? At first, I was like,
Mostly, yeah.
I thought at first you were trying to look cool. And then I was like, maybe he's trying to sneak up on this guy. And then I noticed when you got it, you like also slowly turned around. I was like, what's happening?
Well, I started to notice as I did it that sometimes you couldn't pick up what he dropped without queuing or triggering that area to announce itself, whatever it's called. And so I also noticed that there were times where you could do it where it presents itself almost like credits at the beginning of an intro scene in a movie where like you killed the dude,
Yeah.
he falls, and then you slowly just nudge a step closer, and then it's there's the area. But you also can't pick up the item then because you won't be able to see it underneath the area. So there's a whole lot of choreography of trying to like sneak up so that he doesn't turn and fight you outside of that area, in which case I've got to do a chaotic sword fight versus just sneaking up.
Yeah.
But then also to kill him and to pick up the item and to not.
And your box is full. So also every time it was like a
Yeah,
good 5
it's
seconds.
shipped
I was
out
like,
of there.
come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It worked out well though.
We're at 70% of that game according to PlayStation. Not our trophies, but gameplay 70%.
Yeah, I think you're at least that far. I mean, we're pretty close to the end. You basically have one world left, but it does have your poison swamp, so it's one of the most annoying. I think though, what I ended up doing was cutting up the one episode, and then at the beginning of the second episode we recorded, when we talk about getting it, we say that, and then I cut it in there, so it's not in the original one.
Yeah.
But because the original one I had to deal with all those runbacks and stuff, I was like, that's enough. I'm not doing anything else in this.
Fair.
So yeah, well, you'll have to stick around and see what's next from us. Like I said, we'll probably be doing Doom. I think the only thing that's like kind of making me nervous about that is I'm not like a big first person shooter game. I'm not particularly great at them. I just really like Doom. And I think the other reason I feel like I'll probably just do it anyway is because I want to play it on mouse and keyboard, or I'll already be at the PC. That might have been something that would have changed my mind one way or the other. Like Expedition 33, I kind of wish I had done a Let's Play of, but I am glad I got to have it for myself. But that would have been a good one to do, especially because it's turn-based. Like I would have been able to talk and think about things and whatever, because you're not like so focused on just like learning a boss's moves or whatever. Like in a Souls game, or exploring or trying to figure out where you are. Like Kazan, I did a disservice just because it was all intense bosses and like, what's around this corner? Oh, got this item. Like, what does this mean? You know, just trying to keep track of that all. I think Expedition could have been cool, but because I wanted to be able to play it on my own time and whatever, I finished it probably like 4 times faster because I'm just playing like I was with Kingdom Come. Not necessarily 3 a.m., but like I'll go to a 2-hour session probably when we're done tonight because I just love it, you know?
Yeah.
And so Doom doesn't give me that same thing. It's shorter. I feel like all the Doom games are like 15 hours or something like that. And I'll already be at my PC and whatever.
Should be pretty well optimized though. So I don't think
I do hope.
I think they typically are.
I know, like with like they got Doom Eternal to run on the Switch, so
yeah.
I do hope that helps because like I said, my GPU is fine. It's the CPU right now that just can't handle it, and Doom's so frantic. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
And if it's what has to make me go do it, you know, Janet's supportive. Anyway, Well, I think that does it for this month's Dexbuild podcast. Like I said, we're monthly. Usually, like you'll see these come out right at the early part of the um, following month, but we'll have recapped the month prior, all the most recent stuff. And now that Andy's PlayStation's upstairs, I could see our frequency doubling on this to being every 2 weeks going forward. Maybe not from this one, but just soon.
Yeah.
Especially maybe as the Switch comes out, or maybe as needed. You know, if like a lot's happening and we want to cover it, I can see us doing it that way. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, though, guys, please hit the like button. It helps out a ton. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. We have new episodes 3-ish times a week at this point. So we'd love to have you around for them. If you want to see them as they come out, hit that notification bell. Lastly, leave a comment down below. What are you playing? What do you think about our hot takes? What should we play next? All that kind of stuff. We love talking to you guys down there. In the meantime, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again next time.